My story, ridiculous as it might sound, kicked off earlier this summer. I was working a gig when, during a break between songs, a striking woman approached me. She had this fiery red hair that looked like it was sculpted by flames, wore high-heeled boots, and a silk dress that shimmered in the dim lights. Her smile was dazzling, and I won't lie, her figure caught my eye instantly. I was hooked, right then and there. She asked if I knew a particular song. I honestly can't remember the name. I told her no, promising I'd try to learn it during the break. She laughed softly, flipped her hair, and said not to bother. Apparently the song wasn't on any streaming platform. I didn't want the conversation to end, so I offered to play her something special. I picked Foxy Lady by Jimi Hendrix. She seemed politely impressed, but nothing more. It was late, the bar was thinning out, and I remember thinking how strange this all felt. Looking back, I should have been wary. What was a gorgeous woman like her doing in a rundown dive bar? And why was she talking to me of all people? I'm no one remarkable, but I couldn't help myself. My town isn't exactly a hotspot for beauty. It's a place better known for gangs, crime, drugs, and folks living on the streets. You get the idea. During our chat, she asked if I smoked. Well, I had just started back up, lonely, fresh out of a brutal divorce, unemployed, and generally a mess. Yep, call me the perfect sucker. I followed her outside. She pulled a gold Zippo lighter from her purse, and when she flicked it, a flame erupted like a mini balloon, nearly singeing my hair. We smoked and talked. Mostly I listened, she did most of the talking. She mentioned her boss was searching for a pianist to play regularly at his nightclub, Tuesday through Saturday, 6 to 9 in the evening. I gave her a business card, practically begging her to hand it over. She did, and from that moment my life started sliding into chaos. The club was called Inferno. Never heard of it. Good, it's tucked away in the basement of a crumbling building in the East End. Not exactly a welcoming spot. No sign, no hint of life inside. I half expected it to be some cruel prank. Still, I noticed a small staircase leading downward. Hesitant, I went down. At the bottom, a massive red door with a bizarre symbol greeted me. If I could turn back time, I would have driven straight home. The barroom inside was surprisingly large and square, with a well-stocked bar, crimson tablecloths, and marble floors. The lighting was dim and a smoky haze hung over the tables, maybe from cigarettes, maybe incense. The dining area could hold 100 people, maybe more, though only a few were present. No TVs, no background music. The bartender noticed me and gave a nod. He was enormous, wearing a red tuxedo that made him look like some kind of sentry. In the center of the room sat a grand piano. Expensive looking. I shuffled toward it, nervous, sweat beading on my forehead. The place was sweltering, the fireplace roaring like a furnace. A server in a tuxedo approached. Pale skin, shoulder-length charcoal hair, a thick goatee, and bloodshot eyes. Water, I croaked, my throat already dry. He returned with a pitcher of murky liquid and a grimy glass, muttering in a language I didn't recognize, chuckling like he'd cracked the funniest joke on earth. Then he disappeared, attending to another table. A table of monsters. I froze. A horde of grotesque figures stared at me, eyes far too large for their gaunt faces. I must have been gawking because a lumberjack-sized man, hands like footballs, hair as white as cotton, barked, "You gonna play that thing or what?" The room murmured. Clangs echoed from the kitchen. I told myself monsters weren't real, but my body refused to calm down. Shaking, I tested the microphone. Volume was fine, at least. I didn't find the PA, but everything seemed set, so I sat at the piano and let my fingers move. I opened with a jazzy instrumental take on Smells Like Teen Spirit, a crowd pleaser. Halfway through, something I'll never forget happened. The redhead materialized from thin air, dressed in black velvet, hair teased, lips red as cherries. She danced with a man who had to be at least 7 feet tall, muscles like dump trucks, head shiny like a bowling ball, skin like tanned leather. His pinstriped suit shifted colors under the lights from black to red, blue to orange. I pressed on, finishing the song. This town gets stranger by the minute, I thought. Next, I played Crocodile Rock by Elton John. That seemed to calm the monstrous patrons slightly. The set flew by. By the final number, Bullet with Butterfly Wings, chaos erupted. A beer schooner zipped past my head. A tomato splattered across my shirt. A massive woman in a skin-tight, see-through outfit banged on a table. Her friend, a tiny pixie of a person, chirped, "Play something you know." The place went wild. I'd been heckled before, but never by a room full of ghouls. After the last note, I bolted toward the restroom but couldn't find it. At the bar, I grabbed a napkin to wipe my shirt. I asked the towering bartender where the restrooms were. He looked at me blankly, licked a smear of blood from his chin, and asked me to repeat myself. "Restroom," I said, hating how shaky my voice sounded. I had to tilt my head back just to meet the bartender's eyes. The guy looked like Dracula's cousin, only taller, broader, and much less friendly. He gave this half shrug, half smirk, and in a voice that rumbled 2 octaves lower than mine said, I've got just what you need." He began fixing a drink right there in front of me. The liquid that filled the glass looked unmistakably like blood. Then, God help me, he plopped in a straw that resembled a hollowed-out human finger. When he slid it across the bar, I just stared, frozen in place. I tried asking again about the restroom, but he pretended not to hear me. My stomach twisted. I needed to go badly. And then I remembered her. Ruby. I scanned the smoky room, searching for that red-haired woman. I didn't even know her name at the time, but she was the only person who made any sense in this nightmare. The club was packed now, every seat taken by creatures that didn't belong in this world. Monsters. If I had any sense left, I would have bolted. But fear does strange things to you. My brain was screaming danger, yet all I could think about was finding a damn bathroom. That's when a cold hand gripped my shoulder. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Heads turned, eyes locked on me. "Jack," Ruby called out, her voice carrying across the room like music. "You killed it up there." She smiled, those perfect red lips curling, and handed me an envelope bulging with cash. "The boss loves your sound." Her freckles glowed under the dim red light, and her eyes were dark, unreadable. She looked almost human. I wanted to ask her name, maybe even where the bathroom was. But she turned away before I could speak. A group of enormous men built like linebackers greeted her like royalty. I stared down at the drink. Against my better judgment, I took a sip. It was thick, spicy, and burned my throat like fire. It was awful, but I didn't dare waste it. I forced another gulp down, lips stinging, and decided to wander around until my next set started. The walls were lined with mounted heads, taxidermied but wrong, not animals, people. Their eyes were open, faces twisted in frozen terror. My heart nearly stopped when I recognized one of them, Matt something, a guitarist I'd played with once or twice. In the corner, beside a flickering Kiss pinball machine, I spotted what I assumed was a restroom. There was a rusted metal trough that looked like it came straight out of the Old West. The smell hit me like a punch in the gut. As I stepped closer, a small, 4-foot creature with the face of a hobbit shuffled up beside me and started relieving himself. The thing's anatomy was disturbingly disproportionate. At least I'd found the bathroom. Then the little guy let out a fart that could have killed a small animal. That was it. I no longer had to go. I backed away, trying to steady my breathing. I took out my phone to distract myself, but the Wi-Fi was non-existent. Typical, so I just stood there, trapped in the strangest night of my life. The crowd started getting restless again. Someone was shouting for more music. A massive troll, wearing nothing but filthy overalls, was waving an axe the size of a refrigerator and glaring straight at me, his face twisted into something between hate and hunger. I got the hint. I hurried back to the piano. At least behind the keys, I felt somewhat protected. Before I even knew what I was doing, my fingers started playing Monster Mash. The room erupted. They sang along, every last one of them, their voices clashing like broken instruments. It should have been funny. It was chaos, a graveyard sing-along from hell. Then I switched to Black Hole Sun by Soundgarden. Bad move. The booze started instantly. I don't remember much after that, just that I played like my life depended on it. When I finally looked up, the place had emptied out. My set was done. I was drenched in sweat. The damn fireplace made the room feel like a sauna. Ruby appeared again, this time with the giant man she'd been dancing with earlier. I figured he was the boss. He reached out his hand and shook mine so hard I felt bones crack. "Excellent work, Jack," he said in that deep foreign voice. He looked like a comic book villain come to life, tall, sharp-featured, with eyes that didn't belong to a human being. "You'll be back tomorrow," he said, handing me a sheet of paper filled with song titles I didn't recognize. Before I could say anything, he steered me toward the door. I was halfway up the stairs when I felt a tap on my shoulder. "If I were you," he whispered, "I wouldn't tell anyone about this place." His eyes turned black, swirling like oil, his face twisted, elongated, and before I could blink, he wasn't a man anymore. He was a dragon. Flames shot from his mouth, missing my head by inches. I dropped to the floor, pain searing through my knee. No way in hell I was coming back, not a chance. Then Ruby appeared again, lifting me up with impossible strength. She pressed her lips to my cheek, soft, warm, and whispered in my ear, "The last guy who didn't show up." Her breath tickled my ear as she finished, "Is right over there." I looked toward the exit and froze. Mounted above the door was a severed head, fresh, dripping. I swear it hadn't been there before. Ruby winked and smiled. "See you tomorrow, Jack." When I finally made it home, I collapsed straight into bed. My dreams were nightmares, and when I woke, I could smell her perfume, French, expensive, unmistakably hers, on my pillow. Nothing added up. Part of me refused to believe any of it was real. That place, Inferno, what kind of nightclub was it? I searched online but found nothing, not a single mention. Still, something about it made sense. Too many people vanish around here, too many disappearances swept under the rug. I always blamed the mafia, but now, maybe it wasn't the mafia at all, maybe it was something much worse. The day was miserable. I tried everything to keep myself occupied, anything to make time slow down, but nothing worked. In just a few hours, I had to go back to that nightmare of a nightclub. My stomach turned at the thought. Reluctantly, I pulled out the song list the boss had handed me. Titles like Slow Train to Deathsville did nothing to calm my nerves. Same with Crossroads After Dark or The Devil Owns My Soul. Not real songs, I told myself for the 9th time, sipping my umpteenth cup of coffee. Whoever made this list was clearly setting me up. The day crawled forward. I almost backed out, but 6 o'clock came anyway. I called an Uber, making sure it logged my destination just in case. The club was even darker than I remembered. Foul odors lingered in the air. The marble floors were sticky under my shoes. I dared to hope that maybe tonight, just maybe, I'd see normal humans, maybe even drugged-up lowlifes. Anything human, but that was wishful thinking. "Need anything, Jack?" The bartender's voice boomed, impossibly deep. His skin was pale as paper, slick black hair combed back. He really could have been a Dracula clone if Dracula were 7 feet tall. I tried to respond, but my voice failed me. He just shrugged and went back to serving a group of lizard-like creatures clustered at the bar, tongues flicking at their mugs like snakes. The grand piano let out a low groan as I approached. My pulse was racing, sweat dripped from my temples. Stupid fireplace. And that redhead, if I even saw her tonight, what was I supposed to do? My mind was spinning. The ogres in the back weren't helping. "What are you, some kind of moron?" one shouted. Another bellowed, "He's a penis, not a pianist." A third joined in, "I guess size does matter." I bolted to the bar, desperate for liquid courage. Remembering the murky tap water from before, I asked for a chilled bottle. The bartender gave me a look that made me feel like dinner. He poured a pint of weak beer and returned to chatting with the lizards, who were now licking their own scaly faces. I sipped the beer cautiously, expecting it to be poisoned. If this was the night I ended up as a trophy on the wall, so be it. Warm, dull, and mostly harmless, relief washed over me. I exhaled and slumped onto the piano bench. "Slow Train to Deathsville," one troll bellowed, followed by a chorus of cruel laughter. "In the key of death." Glasses smashed, mugs flew, and a two-headed giant wielding a butcher's knife waved it threateningly. I didn't need to be told twice, he was unhinged. The crowd grew rowdier by the second, their grotesque faces twisted in ways that made my stomach churn. "Didn't your mama teach you not to stare?" someone yelled over the chaos. "We should slow torture him. Like the last guy." Of course, severed heads lining the walls made the threat feel all too real. I took a deep breath and tried to calm my shaking hands. My first touch of the piano sent a shriek through the room. The keys weren't wood, they felt like bones. A beer flew past my head, shattering somewhere behind me. Insults poured like rain. A ghoul approached, slow and deliberate, moving like it had stepped out of a nightmare. Tiny slits for eyes, a cleaver in hand. My mind blanked. Every song I'd learned vanished from memory. Moments before it could swing that cleaver, a massive boom rattled the room. Ruby appeared, of course she did, and with her, the bald, hulking boss, the same one who'd transformed into a dragon the night before, the same man who gave me that insane song list. "Quiet," Ruby's voice rang out, slicing through the pandemonium. The room froze. "Let Jack play." She wore a flowing, dark gown that left little to the imagination. Her lips, red as fire, matched her hair perfectly. She walked to a nearby table and perched herself among a group of ogres the size of buildings. The ghoul, the one brandishing the cleaver, lowered its weapon, but its dead, soulless eyes never left me. 50 monsters, maybe more, all starring. Drool ran down their filthy faces. My stomach twisted from nerves and the beer. This was it, do or die. I closed my eyes and launched into the Addams Family theme, hopping for either mercy or death. The response was minimal, not exactly encouraging. Then, as I launched into Die with a Smile by Lady Gaga, the doors banged open. Heads turned. A gang of lizard-like ghouls stormed in, brandishing antique guns that looked straight out of the Civil War. Hairless, sickly green with a yellow tinge, wearing matching cowboy hats and boots, ridiculous outfits for terrifying creatures. Their leader leapt onto a table, voice metallic, almost robotic. "Where Tony?" "Silence." A grotesque grin stretched across his leathery face, forked tongue flicked out like a snake, eyes bulging from the sides of his head. "Maybe y'all didn't hear me," he kicked the tables, sending drinks flying. "Maybe y'all are too stupid." And just like that, Ruby and the boss vanished. The trolls trembled, ogres snorted like soggy beasts. I grimaced, nothing quite like being surrounded by a pack of scared-to-death monsters. The gang leader tilted his cowboy hat, then hopped down from the table with a heavy thud. "Ivan," he barked toward the bar, "pour us some drinks, will ya? Something tells me we're settlin' in for the night." The room went dead quiet. The only sound was glass clinking as Ivan, expression blank, started mixing drinks. I slumped lower on the piano bench, wishing I could melt into the floor. That's when a huge brute stood up, his chest puffed like a parade balloon, axe gleaming under the dim lights. "You payin' for those," he growled. The lizard leader grinned, "Tough guy, huh?" "Yeehaw!" A gunshot split the ceiling, monsters hit the ground shrieking. Before I could process what was happening, the 6 intruders, though they flickered in and out of focus like bad TV reception, swarmed the henchmen. Lizard folk at the bar joined in, their guns drawn. The big man swung his axe faster than I could blink. The leader ducked, but not fast enough. His cowboy hat spun through the air, and right after it, his olive-colored head rolled across the dance floor. It stopped at my feet, eyes glassy, tongue limp. His body fell in a heap, blood pooling thick and black. Then all hell broke loose. Gunfire, screams, chaos. I dove under the piano, my heart exploding in my chest. The cowboy's head lay beside me, still starring, a slow leak of goo dripping from its mouth. The place turned into a war zone. Bullets ricocheted off marble, monsters howled and clawed at one another. The lizard assassins zipped up walls and across ceilings, shooting point blank into the crowd. A pixie's head burst in a flash of color. A troll's eyes were shot out, maggots squirting from its sockets before its body slammed through a table. And then Tony appeared. The bald boss stepped out of the smoke, muttering words I didn't understand. Gas hissed from the walls, spreading like fog. So this is it, I thought, death by poison. But Tony wasn't done. His skin shimmered, bones snapping and reshaping. In a heartbeat, he became the dragon again. Fire burst from his mouth, mixing with the gas. The explosion shook the whole club. Screams tore through the air. Bodies burned, melted, collapsed. The smell was indescribable, like sulfur and meat and death cooked together. When the smoke finally cleared, nothing moved except Tony, Ruby, Ivan, and me hiding under a piano slick with blood. Silence settled, thick and unnatural. You could stab it and it wouldn't bleed. I didn't dare breathe. The floor was a carpet of corpses, limbs tangled in broken glass. Flames licked the bar. Blood dripped from the ceiling, 16 feet up. Somehow the piano survived untouched. "Well," Tony said, wiping black muck off his pants, "that was fun." His boots clicked toward me, each step a small explosion in my skull. "Jack," he rasped, "hand me that head, would you?" I hesitated. "And stand up," he kicked the piano, "this is a respectable joint." The head was heavy like a bowling ball soaked in syrup. I lifted it with trembling hands. My palms were slick and cold, my eyes full of tears I didn't even feel fall. Ruby's voice came soft and eerie. "Oh, Jack, play us a song, something cheerful." Tony smirked, "Slow Train to Deathville." "Of course, that cursed song." He ordered a cleanup. Within minutes, creatures from the kitchen scuttled out, dragging corpses like garbage bags. Tables were wiped down, floors mopped. The transformation was almost professional. Soon, new monsters drifted in, shadowy shapes filling the empty seats. I didn't take a break. Couldn't. My hands just kept playing, Folsom Prison Blues, House of the Rising Sun, anything I could remember. By 9, the room had emptied again. I finished with Maxwell's Silver Hammer, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Ruby was sitting next to me now, close enough that her perfume or whatever she wore burned my throat. From the corner of my eye, she didn't even look human anymore. Her skin looked cracked, her grin too wide. The air stank of alcohol and death. I just wanted a shower to scrub this night off my skin to never come back. Rough one, huh? Ivan chuckled, wiping blood from a stool. His teeth were crimson. His nails were yellowed long, almost claw-like. Then a cold hand gripped my shoulder. Here you go, Jack. Tony handed me an envelope lighter than last night's. His veins bulged. You didn't learn the songs on my list. I swallowed the anger rising in my throat. Because those songs don't exist, my voice shook. Tony just shrugged. Then he turned and kissed Ruby, long, disgusting, sloppy. His pants were tented like a flag. She giggled and grabbed him like it was the most normal thing in the world. I nearly vomited. Watching two monsters make out wasn't on my bucket list. Quietly, I crept toward the exit. The stairs felt endless, as if they multiplied behind me. My lungs burned by the time I reached the door. No way I'm coming back, I muttered under my breath. Sure you are, said a dry, raspy voice. I froze. Above the doorway, mounted like a decoration, the severed cowboy head stared down at me. Its lips moved. If you don't, it hissed, you'll end up like me. Yeah, I had a few concerns. When morning came, I felt like I'd been beaten with a shovel. My throat raw, my eyes burning, my appetite gone. All that remained was one simple, terrifying truth. I was still alive. And monsters don't like loose ends. I had no idea what to do. Call in sick. Normally, yeah, I'd say that was fine, but this wasn't a normal day, not in the slightest. I spent the whole afternoon packing, going over my tiny list of options. Truth be told, I was lucky to still have a pulse. By 6 o'clock, I was barely holding it together. Sweats drenched me, my eyes were brimming with tears. No freakin' way was I going in, not today, and the worst part, I had nobody to turn to. My ex-wife was living with Nick, the same Nick who was the best man at our wedding. Both of my parents were gone, and my former coworkers weren't even a thought since I'd been fired. Sure, I had some musician friends, but telling them about all this? No way. They'd lock me in a padded room faster than you could say crazy. By 7, the time I was supposed to start my set, I was curled in bed, frozen solid. Don't judge. If you'd seen what I had, you'd be hiding under your covers too. Monsters on TV are one thing, monsters in real life, they're grotesque, unpredictable, and violent. Every instinct screamed for me to run. Then my phone beeped, my heart nearly exploded. Somehow I knew who it was, unknown number, voicemail. Jack, the redhead, Ruby chirped. Get your cute little butt down here, Tony is pissed, love ya lots, bye. Her voice, it wasn't human, not really. Machine-like, precise, witch-like. Still, I hesitated. Yeah, the paycheck was enormous, but money doesn't buy you a heartbeat if you're dead. A few moments later, the phone rang again. This time I answered. Jack, Tony barked. Where the hell are you? You should already be here. I couldn't form words. Look out your window. I did. Parked beside my beat-up Honda Civic was a black SUV. Windows tinted, I couldn't see inside. You've got 1 minute, he shouted. Don't waste it. I moved like a man possessed, threw on a clean shirt, pressed some pants, and jumped into the SUV. My options were non-existent. Inside, Tony sat in the passenger seat looking every bit as mean as an alligator dressed in his fine Italian suit. His bald head gleamed like polished stone, or maybe worse. Next to him was a massive demon, muscles bulging, sporting Terminator-style sunglasses and spiky horns, broad as a linebacker. Silent, menacing. We drove in silence. Within minutes, the SUV pulled up. Slippery stairs led down. Why slippery? I had no clue, and before I could question it, Tony grabbed me by the collar. Play the songs on the list, he snapped, icy cold, or else. He thrust a new list at me, songs I'd never heard of. But I stammered. Tony lifted me off the ground like I weighed nothing. Do it, or you're not leaving, not alive anyway. He shoved me inside the bar. Every eye turned. The room was chaos on a whole new level. Monsters were drunk, belligerent, and all eyes on me. Well, a two-headed troll sneered, his filthy overalls smeared with chicken grease. Look what the boss dragged in. A dead man, shouted another. The crowd snickered and jeered. Ivan, behind the bar, muttered something sarcastic, but I didn't hear it. I was focused on one thing, the cursed song list, and wondering if I would even survive the night. At 36, I wasn't ready to die. I slid onto the piano bench, desperate. Then it hit me, improvise, my 6 years of jazz training were finally going to pay off. The song they wanted, Slow Train to Deathsville, didn't exist, at least not in this world. Fine, I'd create it. The title reminded me of an old Monkees classic. I took the idea and twisted it into G minor, dark, eerie, perfect for monsters. My fingers brushed the keys, bones cold and hard, and the music poured out. Take the last train to Deathville, and I'll meet you at the station. I'm leaving right away. To my final destination. It won't be slow, oh no no no. Cause my life is soon relieving itself from constant fear. Monsters and mayhem. Bloodshed, brutes and beer. And I must go, oh no no no. And I don't think I'm ever coming home. I repeated verses, added a piano solo. The monsters loved it. They danced, they cheered, they slammed around the room. You haven't truly lived until you've seen a bar full of monsters slam dancing, chugging beers taller than their heads. Next up, Crossroads After Dark. I reimagined Robert Johnson's Crossroad Blues in a dark, twisted style. A pixie even swing danced with a 10-foot ogre. My brain could barely process it. For over an hour, I poured everything into the keys. The louder I played, the wilder they got. Beer and food flew, sweat poured off them like rivers. Stink filled the air. Protection, chicken wire would have been nice, I didn't ask. Survival first. During a brief break, Ivan handed me a drink, a dark green concoction floating with things. I wanted to die, I wanted to gag, but thirst won. I took a gulp. Tasted like vodka mixed with toads. I nearly threw up but kept it down. And that was just the beginning of the night. By now, Inferno was packed to the brim. The lights hung low, casting long shadows across the blood-stained marble floors. The fireplace roared like a dragon, making the room unbearably hot. In the back corner, a gang of Goliaths had claimed their own private keg, massive tankards brimming with frothy beer. They were mid-poker game when a feathered, fedora-wearing brute was accused of cheating. His protests were short-lived. They beheaded him, then casually mopped the floor with his blood. Across the bar, a pixie flitted around a cluster of colorful fairies, all bickering about some brute named Bronzy, the same giant she'd been swing dancing with earlier. She insisted they were flirting with him. The fairies denied it, huffing and puffing. Ruby wasn't anywhere in sight. I wondered when she'd decide to make her grand entrance. I tried hard not to stare at the carnage. Starring gets you noticed. With no phone service and zero courage to step outside, I had little else to do. The pixie floated over, chirping about how much she liked the sound of my voice. The fairies nodded in agreement. For a moment, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, some of these monsters were warming up to me. Ivan the bartender cowered near the corner, whispering to a lounge of lizard-faced humans. Their beady eyes darted toward me, tongues flicking, lips curling. I didn't trust them. Not after the chaos with the cowboy-clad lizards the night before. And anyone who dresses like Dracula, absolutely untrustworthy. A tribe of ogres goofed around at the pissing trough. I'll spare you the gruesome details. Seeing them act so brutish yet childish at the same time was terrifying. How had I gotten into this mess? It all came down to Ruby. She was responsible. On cue, she stormed in. Black dress, sultry figure, pointed witch's hat perched on her head. I hated myself for being smitten, especially knowing what she really was. Jack, she called above the chaos, how the heck are you? I wanted to yell at her to tell her how unfair all of this was, but I didn't. Before I could respond, she was cornered by an 8-foot Viking in battle armor, dents and bloodstains marking his gear. The medieval sword in his hands did nothing to calm my nerves. I slunk toward the piano bench, silently thanking the universe I'd survived another day. Since I'd already played the requested list in the first set, I went with something familiar, Crocodile Rock by Elton John. The skulls mounted on the walls sang along off-key naturally, but I pressed on. This is insane, I muttered to no one in particular. Fear and frustration boiled over. On impulse, I launched into Spinal Tap's Stonehenge. The crowd loved it, which was both a blessing and a curse. When it ended, a henchman grabbed a severed head from the wall and ran amok. It took 6 or 7 of the Goliaths to subdue him. The head was shredded. Another spot opened up on the wall, perhaps for me next. Despite the madness, I continued playing. Food and beer flew, but I stayed focused. Survival was priority number 1. My next song, Creep by Radiohead, never happened. A pack of dog-like creatures destroyed the piano mid-performance. I leapt off the bench, narrowly avoiding a grisly fate. Checking the time, nearly 9 o'clock, I realized I still owed them a bit of a set. The monsters were brawling, gnashing teeth, pulling each other's hair. The dance floor reeked of vomit. Patterns emerged. Happy monsters meant chaos, unhappy monsters meant death. The obscene amounts of alcohol certainly didn't help. Then Tony appeared as if from the shadows. He glared at me. "Jack, what have you done?" I stayed silent. Monsters have little patience for fools. He looked at the wrecked piano. "That's coming off your pay." Checking his watch, he added, "You still owe me 15 minutes. I was speechless. By now the monsters had settled and were chanting for an encore. Without a piano I was helpless, or so I thought. Testing the mic, I found it worked. Relief. I started singing Zombie Jamboree a cappella. My voice shook, but luckily the monsters knew all the words. Horrible renditions, but it didn't matter. 10 minutes left. I needed audience participation. I closed the set with "Don't worry, be happy." Big mistake. They hated it. Chaos erupted. Tables overturned, beer and food flew. The sword-wielding Viking chased me out. Terrified, I sprinted upstairs, ignoring everything behind me. At the front door, my heart hammered. Sweat drenched me, clothes torn. A voice called after me. I assumed it was Tony. He hadn't paid me yet. "Ivan," the bartender said, low and dark, "the green ones want to hire you." "Green ones?" Then it clicked, the lizards. "They loved your last train to Deathsville," he said. "Why wouldn't that song leave me alone?" I shrugged, pretending to check my phone. Ivan leaned closer, serious. "Don't disrespect them," he warned, reaching into his cape. He handed me a business card made of human skin, a name and a number etched into it. "Call them first thing tomorrow." He flicked his cape and vanished like smoke. I shoved the business card into my wallet with a sigh. There was zero chance I was calling that number. A cool breeze ruffled my shaggy hair. The sky was moonless, ominous, and heavy with the promise of trouble. I wanted nothing more than to vanish into my apartment and pretend last week hadn't happened. "You know who you're speaking with, do ya?" I didn't. The voice was mechanical, inhuman, too sharp, too cold. "Oh well," my phone suddenly felt heavier than a grand piano. "This is Lester, you idiot." He gave his last name, but it didn't exist in our reality. Smart move. I kept my mouth shut. I was tired, desperate for caffeine, and questioning all life choices leading up to dialing that cursed number before my morning coffee. "I run the music biz." That caught my attention. I eyed the business card Ivan had handed me, no name, just a phone number, an email, and a grotesque symbol, an eyeball floating over a treble clef. "So," I said, dragging my feet toward the coffee maker, "what does this mean for me?" Silence, long enough for me to fill the coffee maker. Just as I was about to repeat the question, Lester, probably a lizard person, spoke again. "I want to record you, you idiot. Why else would I have you contact me?" I nearly dropped the mug. After the week I'd had, my patience for nonsense had officially evaporated. I sipped the coffee, sweet relief. "Say that again," I said, buying time, nicely this time. A heartless chuckle echoed over the line. Suspicious. Monsters, I'd learned, were never to be trusted. "I run the music biz," he repeated. "Most of it anyhow, but with AI on the rise I could lose everything. I need a hit song, fast." I gulped my coffee, refilled my mug. "I'm not gonna name drop," he continued, "but let's say I've helped pop stars for 25 years. I didn't believe him, but as a freelance musician I couldn't entirely dismiss it. This could be my shot. "So," he hissed, "Frank." "Hank," I corrected. "Right, Hank," he said. Cutting to the chase, the monster community is grossly underrepresented in music. They can't carry a tune to save their lives, not even auto-tune helps. We've tried everything. I ran to the bathroom, briefly escaping into the mundane act of urinating. Why was I having this conversation before noon? Lester's voice continued. "We liked your rendition of Last Train to Deathsville." "Ugh, that song again." "I want to record you playing it live, then my team will clean it up, remix it, slap a pretty face on it, and boom, a hit song." Remix, pretty face? I couldn't believe it. Then again, was I really surprised the music biz was run by lizards? "So," I asked, "the song won't even be under my name?" "Don't play dumb," he snapped. "You're ugly, stupid, but you have a nice voice and can play a mean piano. You'll be compensated, of course. Sign the contract and keep quiet, except when you're singing." His idea of humor made me want to stab my ears with a fork. How much money? He made an offer I couldn't refuse. The piano, the one destroyed by dog-like creatures, would be replaced. He even promised to take it off my pay. Contract emailed, contract signed, and just like that I was writing songs for monsters, a decision I already regretted. When I arrived for the gig that night, a brand new, top-of-the-line keyboard waited for me. I ignored the prying eyes of the monsters and approached the tiny stage. As I passed the bar, Ivan barked, "Hank." Hearing monsters say my name still gave me chills. "The man of the hour," Ivan said, surrounded by lizard people dressed like 1970s pimps, purple polyester suits, boaties, high-heeled boots. The way they licked their faces made me gag. Blood spattered his cheek. He handed me a list. None of the songs were real, of course. I sat at the keyboard. Keys weren't bones, thankfully. I fiddled with the settings, tested the mic. Everything seemed operational. A throbbing spotlight hit me. Sweat beaded immediately. Headless zombies sat front row, shoving plates of food and drink down their necks. I almost vomited. How could they even see or hear me? Nothing made sense. The lizards at the bar stared with beady little eyes. Which one was Lester? Likely the one in the checkered suit and dark sunglasses, lapping at his face like a gargoyle. 13 songs on the list, 10 I knew from the previous night. The rest, improvisation, was my only hope. I opened with Deathsville, the song Lester planned to record and somehow nailed it. The monsters went ballistic. The dance floor was packed, drinks and food flew through the air like missiles. Before I could even start the next song, the pixie zipped over and blew me a kiss on the cheek. Bronzy the brute, yes, the same hulking menace from last night, did not approve. He came at me like a wrecking ball and then, bam, my nose exploded. Pain shot through my face in lightning bolts. Blood poured out like wine from a broken barrel. I closed my eyes, bracing for death. Bronzy loomed over me, fists like anvils ready to crush. Then, miracle of miracles, Ivan came running. "Get him out of here," he bellowed, pointing at Bronzy. A team of security monsters swooped in, dragging Bronzy away. The headless zombies hovered over me, prodding me with their pudgy fingers. Ivan shoved them aside, threatening them with expulsion if they didn't back off. I must have fainted because the next thing I knew, I was in a stifling office next to the kitchen. Ivan was patching me up, my face a crimson waterfall, and I was in full panic mode. I didn't trust the sparkle in his eyes at the sight of my blood. He offered pain meds. I took them greedily. Tony stormed in, yelling at Lester, "Did you get what you needed?" Lester nodded. "Excellent," Tony said, and they bickered like two toddlers arguing over a toy. I slumped into a rickety chair. The office stank of rot and old coffee. A battered laptop sat on a desk cluttered with pens, pencils, and an unsettling photo of Tony with his children, all boys, and a wife that looked more robotic than human. Brown boxes reached the ceiling. Weapons of every imaginable kind lay scattered around: pistols, knives, machine guns, things I didn't even want to recognize. Tony and Ivan continued their bickering. "What are we gonna do with him?" Tony asked. "We can't kill him," Ivan said. "We need more songs." My heart froze. Escape was now a necessity. Canada may be too cold for them to track me. Pain meds made my stomach churn. I fought off another fainting spell. Then Tony returned, grabbed my face, and snapped my nose back into place. Pain exploded through me. He slapped me, told me to shut up, then got nose to nose with me, his breath a lethal combination of old meat and cigars. "Listen here, you little shit," he snarled. "You're lucky we need you, otherwise," his knuckles cracked. Ivan's voice cut in, pitifully calm. "We have what we need. The song is in pre-production, first take, should be out next week, 2 weeks tops." I wanted to die. A nauseating smell wafted from the kitchen. Squid-like cooks in blood-stained aprons were serving human brains. My stomach revolted. "Get him home," Tony commanded. 2 giants dragged me to the back door, tossed me outside, and kicked my ribs for good measure. My face was numb, my legs wobbly, ribs screaming in protest. The long stairway to the parking lot stretched before me, blood-stained and graffitied. I muttered, "I've got to leave town, pronto." Halfway up, the back door opened. Ivan's face appeared. "You forgot something," he said, holding an envelope stuffed with enough cash to replace my trashed Honda. I snatched it and staggered down the stairs. "See ya Tuesday," Ivan called, slamming the door. At home, I collapsed onto my bed, trembling, my entire body hurt. How did I get into this mess? The answer was obvious. The redhead, whoever she really was, she dragged me into this nightmare. I closed my eyes, knowing the nightmares were coming. The weekend passed in a drunken blur, whiskey, beer, enough to forget everything, but the loneliness lingered, and the fear. Every time I looked out the window, a black SUV prowled the streets, sometimes parked, sometimes just watching. They were watching me. No surprises there. By Tuesday, I'd had enough. Booze, one-bedroom unit, solitude, monsters, enough was enough. Yes, there were more songs to play, but this time I was ready. This time I'd have my revenge.